Let me remind you of this little gem from the Bard. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts. Lord knows I've played many parts, besides Carl Sweetshut. Some I'd like to forget, but no, we are the sum of our parts. So, what about you? What part do you want to play? Who do you want to be? Where do you want to get to? And how do you want to live your life? After all, this is America, a place where you get to choose. That's ultimately why you're here at Lake Forest Graduate School of Business, right? Lake Forest School of Management. Because you realize that you are the CEO of your career, the captain of your own ship. And that's wonderful because most people never really figure that out. I hope tonight, hearing about my voyage helps you a little bit with yours. Also, I want this evening to be interactive, so from time to time I'm going to stop, show a little clip, and we'll have time for questions, so keep them in your mind, jot them down, whatever. Well, let's start at the beginning. Sydney, Australia, World War II. My mother was engaged to an Australian medical student. Apparently she thought it would be a good idea to get pregnant to a coal miner from Pennsylvania in an American Army uniform. Thus begins a marriage made in hell. She has one baby, my oldest sister. Then when the war ends, she goes to America for 5 years, has 4 babies. I was the last baby, born in 1950. Unfortunately, there was another woman also having a baby to my father, and this was her second baby. So when I was 2 months old, my mother got a grant from the government and left my father and took her 5 babies back to Australia by boat, via England and the Suez Canal, and nervous breakdown. We holed up in Sydney in a Salvation Army hostel for 3 years. Then my dad, who was working in the U.S. as a bookie, he got in some hot water with the local mob and was forced to make a hasty exit to Australia. And he showed up in Sydney with a wad of cash, and my mother took him back and regretted it. They eventually divorced, and then 20 years later remarried, divorced again. It was just a terrible situation. So when he came back, things didn't improve much because he was a drunk and a gambler, and he hardly ever brought home his paycheck. And we lived in government housing, and my mother was in and out of mental hospitals, and the 5 kids were in and out of Catholic orphanages. So we got around. But it was not all bad, honestly. I have fond memories of the 1950s in Australia. It's a beautiful, beautiful country. The gorgeous beaches, and they were free. The contraceptive pill had not yet been introduced, and also there wasn't even television. I grew up with radio, and I was so lucky I grew up with radio. I used to say when we watched radio, that we sat around and you got to be the casting director, the scenic designer, you wardrobed and costumed everybody. It's probably why I became a writer, because of radio. I don't think that TV came into our lives until I was 9, and I think I was very, very lucky for that. Also, my brothers and I, we would collect newspapers, and we would sell them for a penny a pound to the fish and chip shops. And we'd get enough money together to buy 1 ticket to the Bankstown Cinema. And that was the big, there's no TV, so the movies were like, and so my brother Tom would go in, and then whenever he was watching, he'd open the side door, and my brother Stephen would get in. And then there would, the floor was raised, I swear to God. And they would take some stones and they would throw them around, and then people start throwing candy. And all the round candy would roll down to the bottom where we were, and that's how we got our candy. So the greatest thing was to go to the movies, and our favorite thing, was a Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis movie. It was like, we also had serials back at the time, Deadwood Dick and cliffhangers, and it was really great. And TV came and kind of wrecked everything. At the age of 14, I developed a duodenal ulcer. By this time, my mother had also turned to drink, and there was a very honest doctor. I love this guy. He said, listen to me, your parents are drunks. Your dad is crazy. Get the hell out of that house as soon as you can. And maybe that also will go away. So, it made sense to me. So, I quit school at 15, got a job, and at 16 you're legally allowed to leave home in Australia. All my brothers and sisters did. And so, I quit school at 15, got a job at Franklin's grocery store, saved every penny, and on March 19, 1966, 2 weeks after my 16th birthday, I left sunny Sydney, Australia, the only land that I had ever known, and turned to the land of my birth, the United States of America. 2 days later, I arrived in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. It's a terribly, terribly depressed mining town, 50 miles southeast of Pittsburgh. You ever heard of the Johnstown flood? At U.S. Steel, Bethlehem Steel, the coal mines, they all shut down. Unemployment was around 40%. If you've seen the movies Deer Hunter, Slapshot, shot there, that's the Johnstown Jets hockey team. All the Right Moves, that's the town I went to. And I left beautiful Sydney for this, and I went, what a schmuck. Basically, if God ever decides to give the world an enema, the syringe goes in at Johnstown. And I just worked a year and saved up all this money. So anyway, I lived with my crazy Polish Aunt Mary Simkevich, who crocheted over everything, cheap acrylic yarn. I mean, if you visited, put your handbag down, she would crochet over it. She collected salt and pepper shakers, and we were in the bad part of town, by the way. She had, I believe, 2,600 sets of salt and pepper shakers in this claptrap little place. That would be 5,200 individual shakers, along with all the crochet shit. So.